Well, hello there and welcome to the channel. My name is Derek, and today I just wanted to actually talk to you guys about something that happened to me. Now, maybe if you're new to the channel, you don't know this, but for those people who are returning to the channel, this is something you probably know. For years, the Korg Kronos 2 has been my main keyboard. It's been my keyboard for the studio, and it has been my main keyboard for live use, and not for without good reason. The Korg Kronos is a very, very powerful keyboard, even to this day, even though the platform really kind of came out in 2011, and it was kind of an upgrade from the Korg Oasis. But anyway, so this came out in 2011, and then they launched the Korg Kronos 2 years later, and it's just a very powerful keyboard, a great all-in-one workstation. It's got 16 tracks of MIDI and 16 tracks of audio in its sequencer. It comes with like a 62 gigabyte hard drive with streaming capabilities as well. It's got a full-blown sampler. You can do time stretching and so on and so forth. And of course, because you have that 61 gigabyte hard drive, it's got all the space you need to carry all the samples that you want to carry with you. It's got a plethora of sounds. It has 9 different independent sound engines, and you can, tweak to your heart's content. A great sound design tool. The Korg Kronos is a very, very powerful keyboard. But just the other day, yesterday it was, I was actually laying down some tracks. Now, I have a job playing for a church, and when I play for that church, I actually lay down my own tracks. So I do my own bass, I do my own drums, I do my own guitar, I do my own background vocals, I do, everything. I record everything, and I have everything ready to go. So I do a lot of recording that way, and that's a lot of the work that I do in the studio. So I'm in the studio every single week, all the time, recording stuff. And for years, the Korg Kronos 2 has been my main go-to. However, so I was in here and I was recording, and I was doing what I normally do, laying down the tracks, my background tracks, recording the bass, recording the drums, recording the piano, recording, everything. And something that happened, I looked off to my right, and what I noticed is that my Korg Kronos was actually off. It wasn't on at all. I wasn't using the Korg Kronos. And then I had to stop and think, when's the last time I actually used the Korg in the studio? And as I sat and thought about it, I couldn't quite remember. I think it's been at least a month since I have used the Korg Kronos in the studio to do any kind of work at all. So you might be asking the question, well, what are you using now in the studio and why? Let's get into it. So this has been my main go-to as far as my studio is concerned. I currently run my Roland Phantom 7. My Roland Phantom 7 is my main keyboard, and I also use my Roland RD-2000. And someone may be asking the question, well, why do you use that instead of the Korg Kronos? Isn't the Korg Kronos a really powerful, a more powerful keyboard than those keyboards that you have in front of you? And I would say, well, yes and no. In some ways it is, and in some ways it isn't. And in the ways it isn't, those are the reasons why I now use these keyboards when I'm in the studio. So let's talk about it. So first things first, let's talk about the RD-2000. What I really like about the RD-2000, now I've done a few videos on the RD-2000 all by itself, but what I really love about the RD-2000 is I love the keybed, the PHA50 keybed that Roland has come out with for the RD-2000 is an amazing keybed to me. Now, I understand that keybeds are a matter of personal opinion and personal taste, but for me, I really love the realism of the keybed. I love how it has the escapement and stuff like that. So whenever I'm pulling up piano patches, if I'm going to be playing something that's going to be like a piano and a vocal, and that's, pretty much it, or I need, a lot of dynamic range for my piano and stuff like that, I'm normally using the RD-2000 to do that because I can play all the way from pianissimo all the way to fortissimo and all the different velocity ranges in between, and I can do it well. I feel like I can really control what I'm doing when I'm playing the RD-2000 more than, of course, on a semi-weighted keybed, and also more than on the RH3 keybed that's included with the Roland. With the Korg Kronos. Now, the RH3 keybed is a very good keybed to me, but the RH3 keybed is kind of a compromised keybed. you know, it doesn't quite feel like a piano. It doesn't sound like they were trying to make it feel as close to a grand piano as they possibly could. Yes, it's weighted. Yes, it's a graded action, graded hammer action, all that kind of stuff. However, they don't, you know, it's like they made some compromises so that, you know, you could play other sounds on it, because, you know, you typically don't buy something like a Korg Kronos just to play the piano. And so them understanding that, they made some compromises and stuff like that. And yes, it's a great feeling keyboard, especially when you're playing something that is not a piano. It's a pretty good compromise, and it's good for piano and stuff as well. But I really do like this keyboard. I just like it better than the keyboard that is on the Korg Kronos. So that's why I use this. And not only that, but I love this section here where you have the 8 faders, or the 8 sliders here. I love this. And what I can do if I want to play internal sounds, you can just hit shift and you just select which one you want, and now you're playing, you know, internal sounds. If these lights here light up in orange, you're playing internal sounds. If they light up in green, you are playing external sounds, like something that's being MIDI'd in. And I can easily switch from internal to external very, very quickly. And so this keyboard here is actually MIDI'd into this keyboard, and this keyboard, the Roland Phantom, is actually connected via USB to a laptop. You see my laptop is right there, and so it's all connected there. So I can literally play all of the VSTs and stuff like that using this or using this, and I can just pick which one I want to use. So if I need something that requires, you know, a heavier, a weighted key, this is what I use. If I'm using something where I need something light, fast, a quick action, then this is what I use. So I really do love how on the RD-2000 they put that integration and stuff there. So it makes my workflow very, very fast. Now let's get to this Roland Phantom, the Phantom 7. Let's talk about this for a second. So it has the same kind of MIDI integration with your internal sounds and external sounds as the RD-2000. You know, you hit a shift button and you can hit one of these buttons here, and if you hit it and it turns orange, then you're playing internal sounds. You hit it and it turns green, then you're playing external sounds. Now with the Phantom 7, they actually came up with something where you can actually do it to where you're playing both internal and external sounds at the same time on the same zone. So that's another great feature when you're looking for stuff like that, when you're layering sounds and stuff like that with, you know, VSTs and so on and so forth. But one of the main things I really love about this is I really love the keyboard. So the keyboard is actually very nice. It's really noisy, but it's a great, high quality, fast, robust, great feeling keyboard. I like the semi-weighted keyboard here. And I even play piano and stuff with it, especially when I'm playing live and stuff like that. I'll take this live and just play piano and do whatever. So I really love the keyboard. Great build quality and stuff like that. But that's more road stuff. In the actual studio, I love this MIDI integration. I know you can't really see the screen and whatnot, but this is like a mini Ableton Live. So the DAW of choice that I use is Ableton Live, and this gives you like a MIDI, like a mini Ableton Live. You know, I can select my different tracks and stuff right from here on the screen. So I was just on the piano, but I can switch here. Now I'm on the bass, and it's actually labeled bass. I can come over here and I can switch to the drums. Let's turn the bass off, and now. So I can record everything really easily, and as I'm recording, I can hit the record here. The record is right up here. I can turn on my metronome, turn my metronome off and whatnot. I can adjust all the different levels of my tracks, so I can do all my mixing and stuff like that. And all of those signals will go directly to my laptop, and I have the visual feedback here. So when I'm actually working, right, it feels like I'm actually using the Phantom versus feeling like I'm using a I'm using a computer. And that's really important whenever I'm like creating stuff, because I also, I'm also a songwriter, and so I write my own songs and do my own thing as well. And when I'm trying to be creative, feeling like I'm actually playing an actual instrument is very, very important. And so that seamless communication between this and the keyboard, this and the computer, is very, very important. And have that visual feedback right here. I can solo my tracks. I can mute my tracks. Everything right here on the screen, everything that's labeled and has a name and stuff like that, all the names and stuff, they show up on here. I can go through all of my different tracks. You can see over here my different things are moving around and whatnot, because I have several tracks. I think I got like 17 or 18 tracks and stuff here. I can adjust my reverb sends and delay sends, any kind of a bus. I can set up a bus or something like that on the computer, and then I can control control all my buses and stuff like that just using the Phantom. Now you may be asking the question, well, you could just use a regular MIDI controller to do the same thing. Yes, but the MIDI controllers aren't going to have the same kind of interface and that kind of integration. So you're constantly still going back to the computer to do a lot of stuff. But this having the screen and it being, that seamless, the way, like this is literally, it looks like Ableton Live when you're using it. I can launch all of my different clips and stuff like that right here on the screen. I can launch my different scenes right here on the screen, but the way I have it set up is I have it set up so that I just hit the pads and then my scene will launch. See? So the way I record my tracks for a church service specifically, now this is specifically for church services, not all the time, but for church services, the way I arrange my tracks is like what you were listening to there is you're listening to an intro to a song. So I'll record my intro and then I'll have like my verse, I'll have a chorus or something set up as well. I'll have my ending and stuff set up, and I'll record them all separately, and then I'll put them all together later. So what that does is it gives me the flexibility that when I'm in a church service, if you want to repeat the intro, you can. If you want to repeat a chorus, you can. If you want to only do a chorus once instead of doing a chorus twice like you normally would, you can. If you need to end a song really quickly, you can skip right to the end. You can end the song. If you were playing a song and the song went really well and the pastor gets up and he's talking to the people and then he says, let's do that again. Let's sing that part that says XYZ, whatever that part is. You can skip right to that part of the song and you can repeat that part over and over again. So that is one of the major benefits for me as far as using Ableton Live, using the sequencer in Ableton Live and linking it up with the Roland Phantom, is because what I used to do is I used to record everything in the Korg Kronos. Well, the Korg Kronos is a linear sequencer. When a linear sequencer is great for some things, but if you're going to use that sequencer in live performance, it's basically like having a tape player. Like back in the day when people used, singers would come to the church, or singers would show up at a club or whatever, or they would show up somewhere at a venue, and I'd be running sound, and they would hand me a CD and say, hey, can you play this CD? Play track number 4, and then you would, when it was time for them to sing, you would get on there, you'd play track number 4, and it went from the beginning to the end without stopping. Even before that, they used to hand me a tape. Probably dating myself. They used to hand me a tape, and you put the tape in the tape player. They told you which it was. They said it was already queued up and it was ready to go, and all you had to do was hit play. You hit play. They always said, hey, turn the track up or whatever. And then they would sing, and they would sing from the beginning all the way to the end. And every now and then somebody would mess up and kind of forget, oh man, I didn't do the chorus enough times, or I didn't do a verse enough times, or whatever the case may be. And then when it came to, do an encore, there was no way to do an encore with your tracks. So there was zero flexibility. And with the Korg Kronos, when I used to use the sequencer to record my tracks and stuff like that, backing tracks, there wasn't really a whole lot of flexibility. Now there's some stuff I could do with some sampling. I put some stuff on the keys, and I could hit different keys to trigger certain parts of the song, but it really just wasn't that intuitive. This way, Ableton Live for me just works perfectly. And the fact that I have these pads over here and I can just hit pads, I mean, that's pretty amazing that I can do that. So I do love that aspect. I love how it's, how the integration is so tight that it really, when I'm recording my tracks and stuff, it feels like I'm just using the Roland Phantom. My computer, if you actually look at my laptop computer back there, it's actually not in a very advantageous spot. So it's kind of back there and I can't really reach it all that well. But when it's hooked up to this, I don't really need to reach it all that much, aside from, naming my tracks. For the most part, I you know, aside from naming my tracks and picking the actual VSTs, the instruments, and putting them on the tracks, once I get recording and playing and doing stuff, I almost never really touch the keyboard. So this is a very, very immersive experience for me. Now, not only do I use the sounds in the laptop, but I also use the sounds in the Phantom. I love a lot of the synth sounds, a lot of the pad sounds. It has, you know, a lot of great sounds internally. This has some great sounds. Now, I could pass on the pianos and stuff like that. Now, the pianos, when I'm playing live, that's a different story. But in the studio, I'll pass on the pianos. But a lot of the synth stuff and different keys and different things and different sound effects and stuff like that, I do like them here. And I can integrate these sounds with the sounds on the laptop very, very easily, with the interface and the way they've done it. And to me, they've done a better job of that kind of thing than the Korg Kronos. Now, the Korg Kronos doesn't have this kind of immediate integration. The Korg Kronos, if you want to record, 3 or 4 tracks at once, all at once, coming out of your keyboard and going into a DAW, you can't, because the audio interface only allows 2 outs, and that's just left and right, the mains. This gives you 16 outs, or 32 mono tracks, but 16 outs in stereo that you can go out from here into a laptop, and you can do it all at once. So on the occasion, because I don't use the sequencer inside of this keyboard a whole lot, but there are times when I do, and that's normally when I'm out somewhere, or maybe I just don't feel like firing up the computer and whatnot and picking various VSTs and stuff like that, and I'm going to lay down something quickly. Like I want to get an idea down quickly. Something comes to me because I'm a songwriter as well, and I'm going to lay down something really quickly. I'll turn this on. I'll start the sequencer, and then, as I get the idea down, I want to then perfect it. I can then move it easily over into a DAW. I can record everything. I can either just, record the MIDI over into the DAW all at once, or I can record all the audio over into the DAW all at once. And it just makes for a seamless transition from here to a computer. So that's really excellent. And I just like the overall interface. I just like the overall interface of this keyboard. So, you can just hit DAW Control, and you have seamless integration with Ableton Live. Now, it does Ableton Live right now, and it does Logic, and I believe it does MainStage as well. So if you're using different DAW, yes, you can still use this with another DAW like Studio One or FL Studio or whatever it is they use, but you won't have the same tight integration. And word on the street is, this is what people have told me. I haven't verified it. I don't know if it's exactly true. I think that Roland sent out the invitation to all the major DAW companies to have this kind of integration, and the only companies that responded were Apple, which is Logic and MainStage, and Ableton Live, and so that's why you have it for this and not for other DAWs. But anyway, so I like the fact that I can control all my levels and everything just here, and don't really have to spend a whole lot of time using my computer. Now, of course, I can always go over to my computer and do a lot of advanced things and stuff like that when I need it. Not only that, but I have, if you look up here, and you can see that right up there is my SM7B made by Shure, that dynamic microphone. That dynamic microphone is actually connected to the Roland Phantom. So the Roland Phantom is actually connected to this microphone and provides phantom power for the microphone. Now, the microphone is plugged into a preamp, which is called the Cloud Lifter, and the Cloud Lifter is plugged into the Roland Phantom, and this is plugged into the Cloud Lifter. And so basically it supplies phantom power, no pun intended. It supplies phantom power to the microphone. So I can literally lay down all of my vocal tracks and stuff like that right here with a laptop. So I have all of my VSTs, all the sounds on this keyboard, and all the sounds on this keyboard at my disposal, and that's really more than enough, more than what I need. Now, I don't really use the sampler and stuff that much in the Roland Phantom. I think that the sampler is fairly limited. If I'm going to sample something, like I'm going to use a hardware sampler, then if you look over here, right back there, you can see that is an MPC One, an Akai MPC One. If I'm going to do any kind of sampling, that's what I'm going to use. Now, being a keyboard guy, at first I wasn't really big on the on Akai stuff. I didn't really know what it was, to be quite honest. Didn't really know exactly what they did until the MPC X and the MPC Live came out, and then those really got my attention. but I didn't buy them because they were really expensive. And, you know, I'm a keyboard guy. I play workstations and stuff like that. But when they came out with the MPC One at the price point that I had to get it, it was one of the best choices that I've ever made. So what I'll do is I'll record everything using my keyboards and using Ableton Live. Record all of my backing tracks, record all of my vocals. I will do everything. And then when I'm done with that, I will save everything to like an SSD drive or a thumb drive, and then I will connect this to my Akai MPC One. Now, what I do is I take all the tracks, I'll take all of the tracks from my computer, and I will put it into the MPC One, and I just connect it via USB, and I will load all the tracks into there, and I will use the pads on the MPC One. I'll use those pads to trigger the various parts of the song. So just like I can do it here on the Phantom. When I'm playing live, I will use the MPC One to do that most of the time instead of using Ableton Live. So I'll use the MPC One to do it instead. I just find that the MPC One just runs, you know, it runs smoother. I get less crashes and stuff like that, less hiccups and glitches and stuff. Not that I get that much with my laptop, to be quite honest. I just like having that hardware and stuff available to launch those backing tracks. So what I'll do oftentimes is I will take maybe, you know, the RD-2000, I'll take that out with me on the road or at church, and I'll load up the MPC One, and I'll have this and the MPC One together, and maybe a keyboard on the top like the Roland Phantom, or maybe the Yamaha Montage 7, which is an amazing keyboard, especially as a top keyboard. Love the sounds and stuff in there. I have to do a video where I talk about how I use all of my different keyboards and stuff like that. But so I'll take this, or any keyboard really, and I'll take it with the MPC One. So the MPC One will go with me with my keyboard. So I have all of my backing tracks and stuff with me. All of my backing tracks and everything that I record in Ableton Live with the Roland Phantom will be with me when I go somewhere else. There are some times where literally I will go somewhere and I won't take a keyboard with me. I know that there's a keyboard there when I get there, and all I'll do is just take the MPC One with me and a stand. And I just go when I show up, and then rather than plugging in my keyboard, I'll plug in the MPC One, I'll play the keyboard that's there, I'll have all my backing tracks, and I'll sit down, I'll be playing the piano and stuff along with my singing and stuff like that. But then at that point, it doesn't really matter which keyboard I'm using, because it's not the keyboard that's doing the heavy lifting, it'd be the MPC One. But all of that happens because I record with the Roland Phantom. So the Korg Kronos, it doesn't have that same kind of DAW integration. So when it comes to the Korg, you know, the DAW integration and stuff is not there because it's really made to be more of an all-in-one kind of a keyboard. And it doesn't really play all that nicely with Ableton Live and stuff like that. Yes, it can, but it is nowhere near on the level of this. The Korg Kronos doesn't have like the Phantom power and stuff in the back, so I can't connect the microphone with the cloud lifter and use Phantom power and stuff, because the inputs on the Korg Kronos are TRS jacks, and TRS jacks do not support Phantom power. It's just the architecture of that jack does not support that. So I don't use it for that. And so it was kind of a shocker for me when I turned around and looked at the Korg Kronos, because the Korg Kronos for a long time, it was my main keyboard, and I kind of looked over there and it was actually shut off. You know, it's still there now. It's still there on the right. As you can see there, that's actually the Korg Kronos. Sitting there on the side. I also have the Montage setup right now. So I have a few different setups and stuff like that. But I really do love this setup. I'm looking forward to seeing what Korg comes out with next, to see what their workstation is like. So, I mean, a lot of people would say, well, you know, you're just kind of using it as a controller. Well, that's not really true. I do use the internal sounds as well. I use it live, and when I use it live, then I really use a lot of the internal sounds. So I use it quite a bit. But in the studio, yes, it really becomes more of a controller, but it's a very, very advanced and immersive controller that keeps me going, keeps me thinking, keeps me creative, keeps me in the moment, and it has a very, very fast workflow. So I've been talking a lot about this interface and how I really like the interface just overall. I just like the way it's laid out. I like the TR rec, kind of recording style and whatnot. I like having the pads and stuff like that. I like having ADSR right up here and whatnot, so I can adjust my filters and cut off and stuff like that all really, really quickly, really, really easily. And then it's got the touchscreen. The touchscreen is a lot more responsive than the touchscreen of the Korg Kronos. So all of those things I really do like. And so I mentioned playing for a church and having to record backing tracks and stuff like that, a lot of my own backing tracks and so on and so forth. A lot of times when I'm recording and I'm doing stuff, I'm actually on kind of a time crunch. Like there's a time limit. I can't just sit around and tweak and do stuff, forever. And I find that the Roland Phantom allows me to do things like this setup allows me to do things very, very quickly. That would take forever on the Korg Kronos, especially if you're using the sequencer and say you got a sequencer, and let's say I just wanted to bring down the hi-hats in a track. Well, that's going to be really tough on the Korg Kronos. Not very tough on the Roland Phantom, even if you're using the internal sequencer on the Phantom. If you're just going to bring down the hi-hats or something like that, very, very easy because it has a piano roll and you can go in there and just select all of your hi-hats and just bring the velocity down to every single hi-hat. It's so much more difficult to do stuff like that on the Korg Kronos. Oftentimes it's just easier just to record again and start all over again. So I still use the Korg Kronos. Of course, it's a very powerful keyboard. It's got some great sounds and stuff like that, and I still use it, and I still use it live. One thing that the Korg Kronos has over this is the set list. The set list is an amazing piece when it comes to the Korg Kronos. And yes, the Phantom has scenes and stuff like that. But that Korg Kronos, that set list, and all the different features and stuff that are in that set list, it is just well done. And for me, it's better than anything else that's really kind of out there on the market right now. So as far as the set list on the keyboard, so I can show up to a venue, the venue can sound a little strange, or the sound system sound a little strange, and I can just do some quick EQ adjustments on the keyboard itself, and it will adjust. Those EQ adjustments will apply to every single thing in the set list. And so if I needed to boost the highs or take out the lows or boost the lows or up the mids or whatever, just so it sounded good out of a certain PA system, I can do that very, very quickly on the Korg Kronos. Can't really do it on this, but in the studio, this is really a monster with this integration and stuff like that. And the workflow is fast, and I'm able to get things done very, very quickly. And of course, when I do need the 88 weighted keys, I've got even a better key bed, in my opinion, than the key bed on the Korg Kronos. So now this is my main keyboard. Now, I'll be very, very honest, something I'm really looking forward to. It's not out yet, and at some point in the future it will be out, but the MPC Key 61 that looks like it's getting ready to launch, and basically that's going to be something like the MPC One and a keyboard all in one, or an MPC Live and a keyboard all in one. We'll see what they do with that, but that's a very interesting proposition, and that will change quite a bit of things that I do for my live playing. But anyway, that's my setup right now. I was working yesterday. That's what I was working on. I just thought, hey, it'd be kind of interesting to tell people the Korg Kronos is not my main keyboard anymore, and here's why. But what is your main keyboard? What do you use? What do you use in the studio? What do you use live? Let me know in the comments. I'd really like to hear from you. And with that, thank you for watching this video. If you like these kind of videos, you like this kind of content, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell notification icon so you can get a notification whenever I upload new stuff, because I am frequently doing so. And with that, I'm out. You guys have a good day.